nobody ever truly understood Monkey D. Dragon. As the most wanted man in the world, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, and even the father of the protagonist, there's a huge weight on his shoulders. That's why we all have such high expectations when it comes to Dragon. We want to see something that makes the wait worth it. And as we know, it will be worth the wait. Today we'll take a look at why Dragon has a tattoo on his face, what he went through in the past, and what he's planning for the future. So like the video, people, to wake up all those Dragon haters who say Dragon can't do anything except sweat. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything about One Piece. Yeah, I know, it seems like Dragon abandoned his son Luffy and basically left him to grow up alone in Windmill Village with Daydan and the Mountain Bandits. Honestly, it felt more like Garp was Luffy's father, and later even Shanks became more of a father to him. But where was Dragon? All of this was explained to us in Kuma's flashback. Before we dive into Dragon's past, the reason he couldn't be there for Luffy is because, by founding the Revolutionary Army, he risked putting his entire family in danger. That's why he could never get close to Luffy. Otherwise, he would have basically told his enemies, hey, this is my weakness. That's why Luffy grew up alone, and Dragon couldn't be there for him. But Dragon always kept an eye on Luffy, something even Kuma noticed back then. In fact, Dragon even warned someone like Kuma to stop talking about this topic. If Kuma had continued, Dragon would have taken him out without hesitation. That shows how ruthless Dragon can be when it comes to protecting his family. We first saw Monkey D. Dragon in One Piece chapter 100. That's where he saved Luffy's life from Smoker. And in that moment, Dragon spoke some legendary lines. One of them, referring to Luffy, was, "The world is waiting for our answer." This, of course, was referring to the will of D. Dragon is one of the characters most deeply connected to the D, from whom we've gotten some of the most intense and powerful quotes. It's clear this guy absolutely knows what's going on when it comes to the history of the D and, of course, the Void Century. He's well read and definitely not some clueless or backward character. He's a strategist, something we'll see even more clearly later in the video, but it needs to be emphasized here. He definitely kept a close eye on his son Luffy, and was fully aware that Luffy had eaten the Nika fruit, and would play a special role in his plans. As the story progressed, we saw that Dragon occasionally reacted to Luffy's accomplishments. For example, after the Enies lobby incident, he said that the meeting between him and Luffy wasn't far off, and small spoiler guys, they still haven't met to this day. There are really two characters where people say, man, when Luffy meets them, it's gonna be epic. One is Shanks, and the other is Dragon. Honestly, it almost feels like Shanks was Luffy's real father. But no, it's Dragon. And if I think about which meeting I'm looking forward to the most, I have to be honest. Even though Shanks now plays a massively important role in the story, I'm still way more excited about Luffy's meeting with Dragon, because that meeting will be the one that happens right before the final war. The world war that's coming in One Piece. The one mentioned in the book Ohara, referring to Harley, which will involve the entire world and where the world government will be fought directly. The meeting between Luffy and Dragon will basically be the trigger for all of that. But how did Dragon come to turn against the world government? After all, his father was the hero of the Marines, so you'd think he'd follow in his father's footsteps and join the Marines. And he most likely did. I don't think he dreamed of becoming a pirate as a child or anything like that. But that he was in the Marines is a very strong possibility. There are several clues that support this theory. The biggest clue is, of course, Akainu's grudge against Dragon. That could be linked to the idea that Dragon and Akainu trained in the Marines at the same time. If that's the case, it opens up a very interesting storyline, one that could also make Akainu a far more complex character, especially considering he's now the fleet admiral of the Marines. Do you remember the old days when we thought the Five Elders were some ultra-secret group, hidden from the world? Surprise! It turns out everyone somehow knew about them. But the Holy Knights are a different story. Not everyone even knows they exist, but Monkey D. Dragon did. Now think about this for a second. Sabo, Dragon's right-hand man, had no idea the Holy Knights even existed. That means only a select few people in the One Piece world, those who have actually seen the Holy Knights in action, even know they're real. There was one major incident where the Holy Knights were definitely active, the God Valley incident, which happened 38 years ago. Back then, they participated in a game organized by the Celestial Dragons, where they hunted their own slaves as part of a twisted competition. The prizes? Rare and powerful items like devil fruits, and even people. One such prize included the sons of Figalin Garling. Since Figalin Garling isn't a natural-born celestial dragon, but was later found and promoted because of his strength, he became a holy knight, and thus a celestial dragon. But this means his children wouldn't be considered true-born celestial dragons. So during the God Valley competition, Garling had the chance to win back his own children by dominating the contest. And we've learned that Figalin Garling was crowned the champion during the God Valley incident. That means he was at least able to win back Shamrock, one of his children. But during that same incident, Shanks slipped through his hands and ended up on the ship of the Roger Pirates. We also saw that Garp, along with his marine unit, was present at God Valley. That, of course, increases the likelihood that Dragon was also there at the time. And this could explain how Dragon knows about the Holy Knights, and why he knows just how dangerous they are. He himself said, if the Holy Knights are being mobilized, it means the final war is about to begin. So clearly, he witnessed the chaos that erupted in God Valley. It's very likely that God Valley is the turning point that caused Dragon's shift in ideology, the moment he began to question the world government. He must have seen things like when Saturn attacked Kuma, a small child who simply said he wanted to be like Nika and protect people. A child who believed in equality, kindness, and justice, and Saturn wanted to kill him just because he saw him as an inferior, being a slave. Moments like that could have shown Dragon the true face of the world government, and why it needs to be overthrown. And I think Dragon witnessed all of that back then. And it's still incredibly important that we keep this in mind. We've had characters like Roger, whose final words stirred up a storm. Characters like Whitebeard, whose last words caused massive upheaval. Even Kazuki Oden, whose dying message, "Open the borders of Wino," sparked chaos. So why do we assume that someone like Xebec, if he truly died, wouldn't have said something equally powerful? I believe the words Xebec spoke during the God Valley incident are what set everything we're currently seeing in the story into motion. Characters like Kaido, Big Mom, and others, their rise might have been triggered by that moment. And I believe the real reason Dragon had his change of heart was because of Rocksteady Xebec. Dragon must have learned from Xebec's final words that the world government is corrupt, that it hides dark secrets, and that it's far from righteous. That's why Dragon turned against them. That's why he's fighting for the downfall of the Celestial Dragons. We even saw that Dragon was present 24 years ago at Roger's execution. He was already wearing the hood back then, meaning, by that time, he had already rejected the world government and was part of the Freedom Fighters. So the Freedom Fighters, that was the name of the organization that served as the precursor to the Revolutionary Army. They were called that, and Dragon was their leader. We saw that Ivankov also became part of the Freedom Fighters. This further supports the theory that Dragon was present during the God Valley incident, because how else would he have met Ivankov? In fact, both Ivankov and Dragon worked together to liberate the Sorbet kingdom from its corrupt king, who had enslaved his people. They even freed Kuma back then, because Ivankov remembered Kuma and knew, yeah, he's a good guy. Kuma had once saved Ivankov and Ginny from their desperate situation in God Valley, using the power of the Paw fruit. And later, Dragon, together with Ivankov and Kuma, officially founded the Revolutionary Army. This wasn't just a band of freedom fighters anymore, it became a full-fledged organization, known by name all over the world. They had their own logo, structure, and were now taken very seriously. They started toppling kingdoms and much more. But even before that, we saw that 22 years ago, Dragon visited Ohara after the Ohara incident. After the Buster Call had destroyed the island, he apparently recognized Dr. Clover. He knew Clover was researching the Poneglyphs and the Void Century, and most likely, Dragon was also seeking information about the ancient weapons, because the ancient weapons play a major role in One Piece, and it's very likely that Dragon wants to acquire them too. I mean, even someone like Crocodile, way back during the Alabasta arc, which was still early in the story, was trying to get his hands on an ancient weapon, specifically Pluton. At the very least though, we can say this. Because Dragon was present in Ohara, and because he spoke with Vegapunk, he knew that the books of Ohara had been rescued. And as the leader of the Revolutionary Army, someone who has a serious bone to pick with the world government, it only makes sense that he would eventually go to Elbaf to investigate whether what they discovered in Ohara was true, to verify everything for himself and more. And I believe Dragon definitely did that. He was on Elbaf, and while there he naturally saw the Book of Ohara, Harley, and also the ancient mural. And as fate would have it, 3 years after seeing that mural on Elbaf, Dragon had a son named Luffy, with an unknown woman. Oda himself has said that mothers in One Piece usually don't play an important role, but in Luffy's case, things might turn out differently, that his mother could still end up being important. We'll have to wait and see. It's definitely a possibility. She won't be Imu-sama, and she likely isn't a celestial dragon, but maybe she belongs to a different race, because this topic is also brought up on Elbaf by Scopper Gaban, who explains how many races in the world have interbred over time. So maybe Luffy's mother was a Lunarian or perhaps a Buccaneer. Anything is possible at this point. Now let's talk about Dragon's tattoo. Why did he get it in the first place? There's a theory, similar to the one about Shanks, that maybe there's someone in the world government who looks exactly like Dragon, and that Dragon got the tattoo to avoid being mistaken for that person, so that his friends and family wouldn't be put in danger because of the resemblance. That's definitely something very likely to be true, because in the silhouettes of the Holy Knights, we've seen one who resembles Shanks, and another who looks strikingly like Dragon. So the chances are high that there's also a dragon like Holy Knight, and that's why Dragon got his tattoo to distinguish himself, so people wouldn't confuse him with that individual, possibly putting his friends and family in danger. There's also a possibility that Dragon's tattoo is connected to his devil fruit. We've seen similar symbols in various places. For example, the Hell Serpent depicted in the ancient mural has a pattern on its body similar to Dragon's tattoo, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has the mythical Zoan devil fruit of that Hell Serpent. We did see in Logtown that Dragon appeared to control the weather in some way, so it's also possible that he has a Logia-type fruit. However, I personally believe it's going to be another mythical Zoan, because those are the most legendary types of devil fruits in One Piece. And since Dragon is the father of the protagonist, we can safely assume that his fruit must be extremely powerful. When it comes to devil fruits, there's one character who stands out above all: Blackbeard, because he has eaten 2 devil fruits. And Dragon and Blackbeard have already clashed several times. They even had a confrontation on Baltigo, which resulted in the Revolutionary Army having to abandon their base. Though it seemed like a defeat, many believe it was actually part of Dragon's plan, as if he had already decided, "I don't need a base anymore." Soon a world war will erupt, and the entire world will become Dragon's base, so this situation shouldn't be seen as a real defeat. Dragon isn't foolish enough to launch an all-out battle against a Yonko crew that would cause massive losses on both sides, and that's something Dragon can't afford right now. The smartest move was to avoid the conflict by retreating to Kamabaka, the kingdom of Ivankov. During the revelries, the Revolutionary Army finally declared war on the world government and even managed to rescue Kuma. However, the Blackbeard pirates are still on the Revolutionary Army's trail. We've seen that Luffy is now in a place where the food supplies to Mary Jawas are delivered, specifically, at the Red Line. He's witnessing how the Revolutionary Army is destroying all the transport systems and machinery used to send food. As a result, the Celestial Dragons and Mary Jawas are starting to starve. And this is the key point, people. Dragon is a strategist. He knows exactly how to pressure his enemy into surrendering. The world government obviously isn't stupid. They're still working behind the scenes to maintain control over the entire world, and apparently, they have a primary goal in mind. They need something specific to achieve that goal, and that something must be summoned. We've learned that in the world of One Piece, there are 4 great bridge projects designed to connect various islands. But think about it. If these bridge projects were commissioned by the Celestial Dragons, and the Celestial Dragons are the world government, why would the Gorosei and Imu-sama want to connect the islands with bridges if their supposed plan is to sink the world into the ocean? That doesn't make sense. The true reason for these bridge projects is to create a specific pattern using the Red Line. The Red Line, combined with the placement of the bridges, is meant to form a massive pentagram, a structure that can be used to summon something. And perhaps what they want to summon is the Hell Serpent, a force they plan to use to completely dominate the world. That would definitely make sense, and it would also explain why Dragon is aware that Inu's planning something on that scale. We've seen that the Revolutionaries were also spotted near Tequila Wolf, which is one of the 4 massive bridges still under construction. We know that Tequila Wolf has been in construction for 700 years, and that the Void Century ended 800 years ago. So it appears that Inu has been preparing for centuries, specifically for the return of Joy Boy, and plans to use the Hell Serpent to defeat Joy Boy once and for all. But of course, Dragon has planned ahead, and in the final stages of the story he will prevent the summoning of the Hell Serpent by sabotaging the construction of the bridges. There's no other reason the Revolutionaries were at Tequila Wolf. I believe this will be Dragon's major plot twist. He disrupted Imu-sama's plans without running around, acting like a clown, or engaging in flashy battles. He's the strategist. But make no mistake, he will also be immensely powerful. The real question I keep asking myself is, will we ever get to see a true all-out battle from Dragon? Or will he always be the mastermind behind the scenes, pulling the strings? Personally, I don't think Dragon is a character who's meant to die, unlike Garp, who might be more at risk, though to be fair, even Garp might survive. But Dragon to me just doesn't feel like a death candidate. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What's your opinion on Dragon? Yeah, I know some of you might be disappointed by how little we've seen from him so far, but I hope this video helped you understand just how important Dragon is to the story. So keep your head up, we're definitely going to see a lot more of Dragon going forward. And as always, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time here on the channel.